ask what kind of owner I'm going to be. I'm going to be an owner who builds a team that has continued success. We want to create a blueprint for winning.
Steve Cohen, the half Mets superfan and half Mets owner. Oh, and by the way, he is also a billionaire. So what do all three of those things equal? The most dangerous owner in sports. And this video is a rundown of how he got there.
What's ahead over the next few days in the Mets sale process?
A vote was held today by Major League Baseball owners, and Steve Cohen received approval to take over as the new owner of the New York Mets.
Steve Cohen actually became a part-time owner of the Mets all the way back in 2012, but it wasn't until October of 2020 that he became the full-time owner of the Mets after buying a team from the Wilpons for a massive $2.4 billion, which just happens to be the biggest purchase of an MLB franchise in the history of the sport. After the Mets went 26-34 in 2020, it was a huge refresher to have an owner that actually cared for the team, and what he did next shocked everyone.
Let's go, Mets, let's go! Steve Cohen! The Steve Cohen era is taking another step forward in the right direction today because the New York Mets have got a new catcher. He's gonna be behind the plate. Top 10 in the league, James McCann.
It's a good morning for the Mets already as they have a deal with Taijuan Walker.
But let's begin with the New York Mets, where the Mets coming to terms with free agent reliever Trevor May.
Steve Cohen ended up signing James McCann, Taijuan Walker, Trevor May, Kevin Pillar, Jonathan VR, Aaron Loup, and Albert Almora Jr. to the big league club during the offseason of 2020 to 2021. Everyone was ecstatic. Steve Cohen had taken over the team, and in a matter of 5 months, he had changed the team in a way no one could have expected. But Steve Cohen still had one more move left in him.
Mets fans, how are you feeling? You just traded for Francisco Lindor, one of the best shortstops in baseball, along with Cookie Carrasco from the Indians.
This is a game changer for the Mets. And if you were wondering when Steve Cohen purchased this team over the winter, if they were going to really make moves, well, the answer is yes.
And right after he traded for Lindor, right before the opening day of 2021, he signed him to a massive $341 million extension, which still holds as the biggest contract ever given to a shortstop. Around this time, Cohen also gave himself a goal of 5 years to win a World Series for the Mets and their fans, and through the first 3 to 4 months of the MLB season, they led the NL East. Pete Alonso was leading the offense, and they still had Jacob deGrom and Marcus Stroman leading the pitching staff. Everything was going good, and it only got better as they traded for Javier Baez, Trevor Williams, and Rich Hill to make the team better. But after the trade deadline, something in the team snapped.
That's Javier Baez giving his fans a thumbs down. Now him, Lindor, and Pillar all gave everyone a thumbs down during the game against the Nationals.
There's some kind of a lack of leadership here. And when I say that, I'm not trying to attack anyone in particular, but realistically, we talked about this last week. I mentioned accountability and that these guys needed to be accountable for what their performance was out there on the field.
Obviously, something was going on in the Mets clubhouse, and it got bad enough that the team was booing their own fans for booing them and getting in fights during games. So as much as Steve Cohen did for this team to make it better, he did more to voice his displeasure as to what was going on. After losing the game 3-2 to the Marlins and stretching their losing streak to 5, Cohen said on Twitter, "It's hard to understand how professional hitters can be this unproductive. The best teams have had a more disciplined approach. The slugging and OPS numbers don't lie." After he tweeted that, I was not happy when I heard about it. I don't think anybody was. Not the fans or the players. But over time, the more I think about it, how can you blame him? In just one offseason, Steve Cohen had put almost $500 million into a team that really needed it, and he had done everything in his power to make it better. Just about everyone that he had signed and traded for, including Francisco Lindor, did not perform in 2021. The offense had slumped by the end of the year, and the pitching staff just stopped producing. It seemed like no matter what the Mets did, they were always the little brother, or oh no, they're gonna Met. But if we thought Steve Cohen put his heart and soul into the team in the 2020 offseason, nobody could have expected what happened in the 2021 offseason.
It's a great day for the New York Mets. It's even a better day for our fans. It's my pleasure to introduce you to Max Scherzer.
The Mets signed Starling Marte. Oh my God.
In one day, Steve Cohen signed 3 of their most productive hitters today, Eduardo Escobar, Mark Canha, and Starling Marte. They also signed Adam Ottavino, and the only thing missing to complete the best offseason in Mets history was to get one guy for the rotation. They one-upped that after they traded for Chris Bassett from the Selling Athletics, and right after that, they signed arguably the best starting pitcher in baseball, Max Scherzer, on a 3-year contract worth $130 million. This was the perfect offseason, and nobody could have asked for anything more. The Mets were built for a division title in 2022 and a deep playoff run, and they did not disappoint. Steve Cohen finally built a team that wasn't the little brother anymore, and it looked like it would only take him 2 years to help the Mets win a World Series. Francisco Lindor and Jeff McNeil bounced back, Pete Alonso did his thing, Max Scherzer led the pitching staff, and the Mets offense led in on-base percentage and was second in strikeout rate in all of major leagues. They were cruising until they weren't.
And the pitch swung on, driven to left field, pretty good. Way back, deep, and gone. Base.
Swing and a shot, hammer toward the gap, left center field. That ball is off the wall.
No, now takes a deep breath, waiting on a mistake.
There's a bullet up the middle. That's a base hit into center field. Scoring Acuna. Right behind him, Riley. Magic number down to 1. Acuna going back. Acuna is there. He's got it! And the Braves have swept the Mets.
Most effective.
Grounded slowly to third. Manny charges his. Now plays the hop. Throw to first is in time. And the Padres have not only captured the moment, they have captured the wild card series.
2022 felt like the Mets' year. Their 101 wins was tied for third in MLB, and yet they became the first team in MLB history to have an 100-win regular season and end up being eliminated in the wild card series. Steve Cohen had done everything he could, but it still wasn't enough. So he continued doing the only thing he knew how to do as the Mets owner, and that was spend.
Well, day one of free agency, and the Mets wasting absolutely no time signing their all-star closer Edwin Diaz.
Breaking news out of Major League Baseball, Justin Verlander has agreed to a 2-year deal with the New York Mets.
I'm here to try and see it through from start to finish.
I'm very happy and excited to be in the Big Apple.
Over the offseason, the Mets made 9 major league signings of Edwin Diaz, Brandon Nimmo, 2022 AL Cy Young Justin Verlander, Kodai Senga, Jose Quintana, Omar Narvaez, Adam Ottavino, David Robertson, and Denny Mendick. It's hard to believe that the Mets could have a better offseason than the one in 2022, let alone 2021, but of course under Steve Cohen they did. Something else that Steve Cohen ran and directed during the 2022-2023 offseason was changing Citi Field and everything in and around it. In the 50 acres around Citi Field, Cohen and his group called Queen's Future had a couple days where they let Mets fans come to Citi Field to tell them what they would like outside the ballpark. Also during the offseason, Cohen directed the Mets staff to move the right field wall in by 8 feet to make a new section of seats for Mets fans to come and enjoy Citi Field. Cohen has also directed the Mets to make a speakeasy club where the seats are $25,000 for front row seats, but he also wanted to make it easier for college kids to visit the ballpark for just $15 per ticket. Arguably the coolest thing Cohen has done to the stadium isn't the seats or the walls, but it's actually the scoreboard. Cohen has more than tripled the size of the Mets' new scoreboard, and it is gigantic. One fan said it was one of the best opening days they've ever experienced when they went to the Citi Field on Mets opening day, and another mentioned how it is unbelievable. To put into perspective how much bigger the new scoreboard is than the previous old one, the old one was 5,300 square feet, and this new and improved one is 17,000 square feet. But it's insane to think that all these things Steve Cohen has directed to make Citi Field better this offseason, there's still one more that's better than all the rest. The Mets have made an agreement with the New York Presbyterian Hospital. To honor them, the Mets are going to wear a patch representing the hospital on their home jerseys this year. While I agree the Mets players look weird in Phillies colors, it is cool that the Mets are making good efforts and strides to get the city of New York behind them.
Went to the Polo Grounds with my dad, I think 1963, and I used to go with my buddies. We used to take the train from Great Neck, take it to the Shea Stadium stop, and sit in the upper deck. We had a phenomenal time. That's when you develop your affiliations with teams.
Steve Cohen, all I can say is thank you. Thank you for being the Mets owner and doing everything you said you would do for the team. Thank you for being a fan of the team as much as you are an owner, and thank you for making the Mets relevant again.